Now, if you're new to calisthenics and bodyweight strength, one of your main goals is probably the freestanding handstand push-up, but it will feel like it's miles away to start with. But today I'm going to take you through the beginner exercises, the beginner drills, the things that you should be prepping for and putting in place so that you can go from this freestanding handstand position, lower down, touch the head to the floor, and then come back up with control. Now, if we break down the handstand push-up into different sections, we have balance, strength, and skill. And all of these things we can start to work on straight away. We just need to hit it at the correct level. So to start with, I'm going to go through the real basic stuff, the foundations. And even if you are a little bit more progressed with each of these, it's worthwhile assessing and checking that you don't need to spend a little bit more time here, fill some gaps, which will make the harder progressions much easier. Let's first look at these strength progressions. So we have the push-up, the dip, the overhead press, the pike push-up, the wall handstand push-up, and the deficit handstand push-up. So for the setup of the push-up, we just need to externally rotate the hands. We need to come up onto toes. We need to make sure that we've got a really strong base foundation here. So I'm pushing through the upper back and rounding the upper back slightly. We don't want to be collapsed through the scapula. So we need to check we can do those all-important scapular push-ups, pushing up to protraction, coming down to retraction, making sure we keep the arms dead straight so we're focusing on those shoulder blades. At the same time, I'm not allowing the hip to collapse or drop. I need to make sure that I've got that plank-like position. I could even turn the toes over and really work on that connection between the shoulder and the toes. From there, I'm coming down to the bottom of the push-up, and again I need to be able to show control in this bottom position. I should be able to move around here, spend time. If that's hard, I could go down onto knees and then back up to the concentric, back down on the eccentric, so up and down with control. If I pause anywhere through the movement, it should look strong. Again, if I need to make it easier, I could drop to the knees, or I can elevate the hands. Now, if I elevate the hands, it does make it easier, but if I use something like these steps, I can actually make it harder by taking the chest lower and going into a much deeper position. And that deeper position is going to really set a good foundation for the next level, which is the dip. I need that strong position. Again, shoulders back and down, chest open. I don't want to be collapsed to the start. So even just practicing this for time is really important. We can do exactly the same at the bottom of the dip. So hanging out in this position. Now here I need to learn how to take the toes off. Now that might be a strength and conditioning thing, or it could be a balance point of view. If I'm over here or if I'm over here, it's going to be much harder. So I need to find the sweet spot where I can slowly take the toes off and it feels okay. Now once I have that, I could practice the eccentrics, so coming down, pausing at the bottom, put the toes down, help myself back up, or I could do the full movements. Then we have the overhead press. Now with the overhead press, this could come in actually earlier than the other two if I use a very light weight. But obviously I can keep progressing with this, adding load to the bar or use a heavier bar. Now if you are restricted with height, like I am in the garage, if I put plates on this, I'm going to hit the ceiling. You could do a Z press version or a seated version. Now this one is a little bit more demanding flexibility wise. If you do struggle to sit in a pike position, you probably need to sit up on a box, but it's a great alternative and makes the movement very strict. Then we have the pike push-ups. Now with the pike push-ups, we need to turn the hat round because we need a good contact with the head to the floor. Now this is getting more like the handstand push-up progressions of externally rotate the hands. I'm going to start off in this down dog-like position. Now if you are super tight in the hamstrings, you might need to bend the knees a little bit here, but use it as an excuse to also work through that flexibility limitations, because these are just going to help you with handstands if you can get deeper into this bent over position, which is going to allow more weight into the hands and shoulders and upper back. Now from this position, I'm going to load forwards into the shoulders. I'm going to bend the elbows, take the head to the floor, and then repeat, come back up, and then reverse the movement back up to that start position and repeat. Now with all these movements, we ideally are aiming for 5 repetitions for 5 sets, especially if strength is your main consideration or your main weak link in the position. We need to get you nice and strong. So 5 by 5s is the best way to go. Now with all these exercises, you could go into different progressions. I could raise the feet, I could raise the hands. I've got separate videos on each of the elements that go into more detail, but this is more just the stepping stones of the things you need to work on, especially at that beginner level. So I want to simplify everything as much as I can. Now, as we get deeper down these strength progressions, some of these are starting to overlap with the balance work and the skill work, but that'll make more sense in a second. So we can then next go to the wall handstand push-up variation. So again, we need to turn the hat round into the chest to wall handstand position. Here, opening the shoulders. So I want to try and be in a straight line, which is the same as the freestanding version. So the straight line there. Now I'm going to come down, taking the shoulders forwards, keeping the elbows in, touch the head to the floor, create a triangle, and then ideally back up again. Now to start with, when you're working on these, you might need to go eccentrics, so slowly coming down, pause in and then get out, or walking the feet back up, sliding down. Now, if we're still trying to stay in that 5x5, these can be tricky and can be a big jump from the pike push-ups to suddenly do 5x5 of those. So an alternative would be to do a superset. You could do 2 or 3 reps of those, 3 repetitions of the pike push-ups. And then if you do have good strength through that range already, we can go into deficit handstand push-ups. So exactly the same. Now, we're not demanding too much balance here because we're still using the wall, but it's all about that strength pushing back up again. But like I say, without not using too much of the freestanding balance, that's probably as hard as you're going to go with the strength work by itself. Now, if you are a total beginner to all this work, all the calisthenics stuff and the handstands, then the balance is going to be a massive component, and we need to start that as soon as possible. Because it doesn't matter how strong you are, if you don't have good balance, where's my camera doing? If you don't have strong balance, then doing a freestanding handstand push-up is going to be near on impossible, because you're just going to push towards overbalance or push towards underbalance. So making sure that this is super strong, and you can move around here, whether it's bent arm or straight arm. I can go into funky positions and fall over. That means however my handstand push-up turns out when I'm doing the freestanding reps to start with, I'm not going to fall out. And then once you get super good at balance, you can even use it to your advantage to make the handstand push-ups easier. So as I come down, I can go towards underbalance, taking the feet down, but as I come back up, I go towards overbalance that pushes me back out. So I'm using like a falling type movement to help me up out of the position. So what I'm trying to do now is just basically sell the balance. We need to get super strong in the balance. That's going to make things much, much easier. And when it comes to learning the handstand balance, we need to be doing some conditioning work. So increasing time roughly up to 60 seconds against the wall in a chest to wall position. We need to be working our overbalance and our underbalance to increase our window of balance of the handstand, so we never fall down in the handstand. And then we need to get our consistency of our kick up. So we need to kick up 10 times. We want to catch 10 handstands. So for the beginner, we're jumping up into this position and just holding for time. Now that could be feet on a chair, the couch, a table, just in that position, just building confidence and strength. Again, like the other strength positions, we're not collapsing there. So we just want to start to get into that point, pushing away. Now you can hear by my voice that it's not challenging. I want to try and keep this at like an 8 out of 10 in terms of intensity, just hold as long as I can and then come back down again. As that becomes easier and I get more confidence, I'm going to walk in closer to the wall. Now, when I go closer to the wall, I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be collapsing. I want to be staying in this position. I want to be pushing up and away there. Now, if you find that you can't get into these positions and this position is really hard for you and your body wants to collapse, we probably need to be working mobility, upper back and shoulders with hanging, thoracic rolling on a daily basis. We're going to be hitting visiting positions, not too intense, but just enough to slowly open the body up, get the body used to doing it. We could be doing some body line holds at the same time. So hollow body position. So into these positions, making sure the low back stays on the floor, into there. If I want to make it harder, I can take the hands above my head. But if you can take the hands above your head for easy 60 seconds, I would swap over and just do more chest to wall handstand, unless you've got a really archy low back. We need to give ourselves the best chances of creating a consistent kick up. Now, the best way to do that is a strong foundation. So hands on the floor first, shoulders on top of the hands, focal point looking down between the index finger, glue that in position. Do not change those things. Kick, try and touch the wall, come back down again. If that's easy, same thing but higher, come back down again. Notice the shoulder, the hand, the focal point staying the same all the time. If I can get to the wall, then great. Now once I get to the wall, I can start to work that overbalance by pushing through the fingers, reaching up, pulling the toes off and back again. So not the toes, the heels. So I push up, reach away, heels come off, come back again. Once I can do reps of that, I can hold for time, then I can turn around, do exactly the same thing, but for underbalance. So now I go into the chest to wall handstand. Now this will take a while to get this one if you're new to the movements, but this is the one that will give you the most consistent kick up. So shoulders forwards, toes slide down, come off the wall, push back again. Once we get good at that, I'm going to push up to handstand, hold for a few seconds, go back again until I can do that and kick up and hold. Now as I get better with that one and the back to wall one and the conditioning holds, I would start to add in some freestanding holds. So kicking up in the middle of the room, we need to start to get really confident with that freestanding hold. Consistency is what we're looking for, not just hold time, but repetitions. So I need to be able to kick up, hold 1, 2, 3, come back down, go again, hold 1, 2, 3. Notice I'm relaxing my position. I'm not trying to get this position because that's more fragile. You try standing with really good posture, you're more likely to fall. We want to again be around that 80% intensity, prioritizing our balance. So strong base, hands, shoulders, focal point, kick, find your balance. If that feels okay, pull up a little bit taller and hold there for time. So we need to increase our time in the holds, and we need to increase our consistency of catch. Then we need to start thinking about the skill work. So the skill work is the actual thing, the handstand push-up, putting the strength and the balance and the skill of understanding the pathway and things like that together into the real thing. Now there's some movements that are a little bit fake in terms they're not actually a handstand push-up, but will definitely help you to start with. So things like crow, shoulder stand, and then moving the position around. So if I go into a crow-like position, so this, or a frog, so knees on the outside of my elbows, so there, my hips nice and low. Now in that position, I can start playing with this tilt. So notice I'm bending the elbows, taking the head and shoulders down as the hips come up. If I start to add a bit of a push in there as well, I can start to play with this type of movement. And then I can start to go into some easier handstand push-up variations that don't require so much balance. And if I'm strong, I can get away with that and push up to some positions. If I change that to back to wall, and now I've got the confidence something that's there to catch me. So I can play again with that movement, so head and shoulders down. I can start to reach up towards the wall. If I'm strong enough, I might be able to do that, even if I'm still working on balance. If I'm not strong enough, I can still play with that movement, doing the seesaw, taking the head and shoulders down, hips up, or I could come into handstand and then I could do a freestanding eccentric down to that position. But for most of you, it's going to be this position, getting used to this, even trying to have a target, so trying to bring your head down to the floor. You could bring your knees up. Now I need to bring those hips down, head and shoulders up to catch that position again. I could play with a similar version, but now on a shoulder stand. So here, elbows into the side, arms into your torso, get used to being in this position. Now this is very similar to that frog. I can do this, come through to my L-sit and back to that position again. Just be careful that you don't backsplat. But if we look at the progression of that and go to straight legs, so now that shoulder stand position, there's the bottom of my deficit handstand push-up. So you can start to see these skills are all starting to come together. So when we look at the progressions, look at the strength, look at the balance, they all start to mix up. But it's going to need to work a little bit like a menu for you to see where your strengths, your weaknesses are. So your pathway to the handstand push-up might be different than mine. So you just need to work out what works best for you. Now, a different skill progression could be using a target. Now, this could be done in a pike, let's turn the hat, position. So here, coming down, touching, coming back up again. So now I'm working a skill element because it's not full range of motion, or it's partial range strength. I could do it in my handstand position on the wall. So coming down, touching, coming back up again. Really good for working that pathway, that good technique, where if I go any lower, I would collapse. This one could be done back to wall as well. Make sure I don't kick that. So here, but when I'm doing back to wall, I'm trying not to arch the body. Or if I have it, the best option is freestanding, but only if I can do it with good control. And then obviously you can increase and decrease the height of the target. And then once you've got to that level where you're starting to get to the pointy end, you're going to start to play with the full movement. Now that could be eccentric, so coming down only to there and then putting your feet down, or it could be the full movement back up. And then if you have it and you've got the strength and the prerequisites, and normally this would be the next progression, is you get a couple of steps or something you can use. You pass Rosie on the way through, and then we come outside. Roof is too low in the garage. Make sure there's not too many neighbours watching. And then you do the full range. Either eccentrics are coming down only, or if you have it, you push back up to the top. Now obviously, handstand push-ups can take anywhere between 12 months, say, 2 years. It depends on where you're starting from. But the beginner needs to focus on those things we spoke about first of all. So just remember, enjoy the journey. Work out what you need to work on first. Most beginners are going to be around here somewhere with a little bit of this. I have programs for all the handstand push-up variations in my app. Link is down in the description. Let me know if you have any specific questions, and I'll speak to you next time.